Welcome to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 75. We are in Hamburg, Germany, not Hamburg as I thought it was. I have learned very quickly this week. My name is John Morgan. Cold Coffee, unfortunately, could not make the trip this time. He is sitting back home, but you know he'll be putting this all together when we finish it. So thank you, Cold Coffee. Big shout out. Instead, I got my man, Abbey Subhan.
What's up?
Enthusiastic Abbey Subhan is with us. And then our good friend from London, Simon Head, is here with us as well. We are in the Radisson Blu lobby. This is the host hotel for this week. We, of course, are here for UFC Fight Night 93, Arlovsky versus Barnett. Simon Head, how are you digging Germany so far this week, my man?
Loving it. Loving it. This is my third trip to Germany. First one cost me a ridiculous amount of money because it was a World Cup match, and it took me a year to pay that back. Second one was Berlin last year. That was good.
Yeah.
Good fun event. I think we're going to have some fun and games on Saturday. I think it's going to be a good fun event. Maybe not the A-list star power that we've seen in recent shows, but I think we've got, based on Media Day today, we've got a lot of characters on this card who are really, really pumped up for this one.
Should be a lot of fun. This is actually, believe it or not, my first trip to Germany. All the other previous events, either Matt Erickson or the magnificent one Steven Morocco covered. So this is the first Germany event that I've ever covered. So I'm excited to see what the atmosphere is like. I did hear this is a sellout, so it sounds like it's going to be a good crowd. Not the biggest names on the card, but as you said, some characters. And I'm looking forward. I mean, from the vast amounts of frosty beverages that are sold here, and we've experienced so far, the large quantities that they are not afraid to give you.
1 liter glasses.
I'm down.
1 liter.
I'm down for that. All right, listen, so we definitely came here to cover UFC Fight Night 93, but this quickly became a fight week that to me was about Joe Silva walking away, UFC matchmaker. I think that might have trumped all the news. I know I personally had heard some rumblings that he was thinking about it ever since the sale. He apparently did have some points in the company, so he got himself a nice little payout, and it was able to make the decision to walk away. And I heard that he was thinking about it. It sounds like he finally made it. He let the company know that he's going to be leaving, from what I hear, around the end of the year. I'd seen some reports that maybe it would be a year from now. I heard by the end of the year is kind of what he's looking to do. When you guys heard, Abbey, that Joe Silva, I mean, one of the fixtures of this company, was walking away, man, what was your instant reaction?
My initial thoughts on Joe Silva walking away was how can you walk away from the best job in the world, where you get to put? It's like when I was a kid, I'd grab my He-Man and my Action Man.
You're fine. What's Sebastian doing over there? Produce your show.
I don't know.
This is our show.
Yeah,
I'm adjusting his levels. Don't you worry.
My He-Man and my Action Man, and all right, let's see who would win in this fight. And that's essentially what he does. He gets to choose and put together these fantastic matches. But then I was speaking to some other people who are close to the situation, and I gave you the wink.
The nonverbal communication there was awesome.
And
great for radio, by the way.
Apparently, it's a really stressful job.
Yeah, very stressful.
And it's something that he's been thinking about doing for a while. So, I saw coverage today on Junkie, and I was just like, wow, okay. John, do you think we should ask the fighters about it? Mash-up questions.
Right.
And I think the best takeaway for me was Alexander Gustafsson's response was, one of the questions were, what's your best story? What's your best memory of Joe Silva? And Alexander Gustafsson's answer was basically, oh man, every time I see him, I'm either sweaty and bloody, and he just shakes my hand.
That's great, man. It's funny because, as you said, matchmaking is the dream part of the job. I think that's the fun part. Is I get to play with all the toys in the UFC, and I get to say who's fighting what. I get to be the guy with the UFC video game, putting the matches together, and that is a cool part of it, to know that you're guiding the course of history or whatever. But I think a lot of what people don't realize is that, that was a tiny part of the job. The real part of the job, and I think where he was, most valuable was, first of all, talent scouting. I mean, these guys watch. You ask Joe Silva about any fighter on the regional scene, he's seen them. He knows the tape. He knows what they're capable of. He's well aware of, who that next level, that guy or girl that's 3-0 that looks like, they might be somebody to keep an eye on. I remember talking to him about Francis Ngannou. I was like, when did Francis Ngannou first get on your radar? And this was all an off-record conversation, but fuck it, he's leaving. So, I was like, he's like, honestly, the first time I saw Francis Ngannou was the one fight that he's lost. And he's like, the manager of the other guy sent me a tape and was like, watch my guy, the guy that beat Francis Ngannou. And Joe was like, I think that guy's better. I think Francis Ngannou's better, even though he lost, because he could see those things. So talent scouting was something that he did, and of course, contract negotiations as well. Now, at the highest level, when you are the Conor McGregors, the Ronda Rouseys, that's when you go in and you talk with Dana White, you talk with, in the past, the Fertittas. But, all those other levels, he's the guy that's here's what your offer is going to be, here's what we can give. I mean, he handles all that stuff. So, Simon, man, I think it's going to be hard to replace him.
It really is, and people only see the sort of the finished product of what Joe Silva does, and as you've very clearly elaborated on there's an awful lot of legwork that goes on, and we see him sometimes on the weigh-in stage. There's that classic picture of him separating. I can't remember who it was he was separating, but it is, anyone who knows what I'm talking about knows the picture.
The Joe Silva face.
The Joe Silva face is amazing, but yeah, I mean, this is a man who clearly loved his job, and he was there from the very beginning. He was part of SEG.
Yep.
And I think was in marketing to start with, and then moved into becoming the matchmaker. And you think of all these amazing fights and amazing fight cards that we've been able to enjoy down the years. That's his work.
Mm-hmm.
That's his work. He's been the guy who's crafted all this stuff and put it all together. And he's going to be very, very tough to replace.
Yep. Abbey, you said it sounds like a dream job, but off-record conversations again with Joe, he'll tell you it's stressful as hell. I mean, it's a 24/7, 365 job. Your phone is always on you. Fighters are trying to get a hold of you. Managers are trying to get a hold of you. UFC officials are trying to get a hold of you. The injury replacements that we see, all that stuff, all the headaches that happen. It's crazy. Joe told me, some of the hardest things. It's interesting because, we've heard over the years that, Zuffa is like, they're taking steps to try to get managers out of the way. They don't want managers. And I've actually heard quite the opposite from Joe. It's just like, hell with that. Can you imagine trying to do a contract negotiation with a fighter? At least a manager, you can be like, bro, your guy lost 2 fights in a row. Like, his values, it's not there right now. We can't offer, whereas, I've heard conversations that he's had where it's, talking to the fighter themselves because they represent themselves. I mean, the fighter, I'm worth this, Joe. This is what I'm worth. And you got to be like, no, bro, you're not worth that. How difficult that must be. So just a incredibly stressful position for him. Again, all the injury replacements. You think about the cards where they have to replace damn near every fighter on the card at one point or another. So, but it does sound what happened was, he made some good money. And he has the ability that he doesn't have to work anymore. He's a pretty simple guy. He doesn't have an extravagant lifestyle. He has a badass basement man cave in his house. I think there's some video on it. If you've never seen it, it's awesome. He built it himself, and it's a legit badass man cave. And but other than that, he's a pretty simple lifestyle from what I understand. He's got family and he's got enough money. He doesn't have to work. Maybe he'll do something. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll write a book, which would be insane. I mean, you talk about
That'll
it.
ship some copies. Yeah.
I don't. It'll be interesting to see if he has to sign a non-disclosure agreement or something like that, because he hasn't been able to comment on record. Like, he's never able to do interviews. We got him one time. We did an annual book. USA Today sponsored it. It was this publication that they put together in the States, and it was like the 25 most powerful people in mixed martial arts. And for that, Ben Folks actually got to interview him and Sean Shelby as well, and they actually got to quote on record. Nothing real specific other than what the job entails. And I think they had to be careful about what they could say. But if there's not a non-disclosure agreement and he can walk out the door and say whatever he wants about his time with the company, can you imagine the book that will come together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, they've been very protective of what Joe does, and it's almost like the Colonel's secret recipe. It's like that. It's like, it isn't just a case of finding person A and them get person B with a similar record. This the stylistic matchups, and you have to think 3, 4, 5, 6 events down the line. You're teeing up potential fights further down the line when you're booking a fight now. There's so much depth to what he does.
I wonder also if he'll have to sign a I mean, not that he would want to jump back in the MMA business. He certainly doesn't want to do it to that level. But can you imagine, like, if Bellator was like, hey, man, can we just pay you as, like, an advisor? Like, not 24/7. Maybe we're limited to, like, almost like billable hours, like a lawyer or something. Like, listen, man, we get 5 hours a week of your time.
Consultancy, yeah.
And consult like that. I mean,
That'd be pretty sick.
that'd be amazing.
Like, hasn't he got like over 2 decades with the UFC?
21 years.
Yeah, so he started with, during the SCG era, right?
Seen it all. Literally seen it all.
From what I understand, he saw an article in the newspaper, an advertisement for a job.
Yeah.
And he just
Black
phoned
Belt. It was Kung Fu Magazine or Black Belt Magazine. One of those old magazines.
Bruh, that's so sick. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't
Fanboying out a little bit.
I'm
It's
just
hard
fanboying
not to. I mean, when you
Yeah.
think about what this guy has seen, I mean, from what I understand, Ben Folks has talked to him in the past about, when he walks away, would he write a book? And I think he's always been like, nah, man, like I don't want to do anything. He's and that's the way he's always been. The UFC doesn't allow him to comment because they've always wanted Dana to be the face, and it makes sense. I mean, have one voice, have one guy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he wasn't the one that wanted to be out front anyway. The guy doesn't have a Twitter account. He's not trying to be social media. He just wants to do it. So I think this is interesting though because, this is the first time that I feel like, even though he wasn't a public figure, that I feel like we're losing a face of the company. I mean, Burt Watson had kind of become a face of the company. Maybe not as common to everybody. Stitch, kind of a face of the company too. But I don't know, man. I feel like this is one of like the core people of the company, and it's still not quite a public figure face, but it just makes you realize what's going to come. I mean, Dana eventually will be gone. Well, probably when he dies, to be honest with you. The guy's a fight fan, man. He wants to. I mean, Buffer, he'll be gone eventually. Goldie, Rogan. I mean, Rogan's already scaled back a little bit. I mean, change is inevitable over time. You know what I mean? And I think obviously the sale escalated a lot of that because the people that did have a financial windfall could back away. But it's kind of weird, when you've been following a sport as long as we all have, and then you kind of start to realize the inevitability. I mean, and that's any industry, that's anything. Things change. But I don't know, it's kind of, to me, I don't know, for whatever reason, this one is hitting me a little harder to think about. This is going to happen a lot more over the next couple of years.
What's going to happen to our segment on MMAjunkie called Joe Silva's Shoes?
I don't know.
It'll be insert name here's shoes.
UFC matchmaker.
I don't like that. That's too general. It's too general. I've suggested Sean Shelby's nutsack, but Mike doesn't seem too enthusiastic about that one. So I don't know if he'll go with that, but anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of change, we'll call it the Diaz McGregor effect. But people have asked, what things have you seen? I really haven't seen anything change in terms of like, oh, this is definitely because WME IMG owns it. They've made these changes. I haven't seen anything like that. But I will say one change I saw, and we'll see if it plays out tomorrow. The media day you couldn't see as much, but in Vancouver, the fact that media events, weigh-ins, things like that are supposed to be fighter +1. They're being very strict about that now. They, before as in the past, you're like, you got your camp, you got 3 or 4 people, come on, you're part of the team. They're being very, very strict right now about fighter +1. If you got the rest of your camp, they go out there with the fans. And I think that, from my understanding, is a direct reflection of what almost happened at the David Copperfield Theater when you had, a group of Connor's team with access, a group of Diaz's team with access. They were in close proximity to each other, and it could have gotten ugly. And the rule has always been fighter +1, but you're like, it's Anderson Silva. He's got 40 people with him. Like, let them all in. But I did notice that last week that they're being a little stricter about that, and I guess we'll get to see tomorrow if they stick to that too.
Well, it could have turned really ugly. It could have turned ugly. So yeah, why not just prevent it?
We didn't see it too much today. The media today, I couldn't. It was a little bit looser, and it was a big room, and this isn't like a fight card that features like heated rivalries where you'd want to keep them apart. But it does seem like something that they're really going to monitor moving forward.
Yeah, I mean this week seems, by comparison, very, very relaxed and very chilled out, and even the guys who are on the top of the card, Arlovsky and Barnett, they've been around the block a few times. They know not to go for the histrionics and all the rest of it, and they're too long in the tooth for that sort of stuff. And I think what we've got is a fight card where we're going to see quite a bit of respect between the guys beforehand, and then hopefully a load of action once they get into the octagon. But yeah, I don't think we're going to need to duck or dip or dodge any flying cans of Monster Energy this week, which I think is probably a good thing.
It is. I mean, it's good to have that every now and then. It makes it fun. But if every week was like that, then you're like, come on, man. What am I covering here? Another thing that kicked off this week, I know we've been here, so I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see it yet, but the Ultimate Fighter 24 debuted this week. I got to say, I want to gauge your temperature about it, both of you guys, but I'm excited about it, man. I really am. Look, I haven't been tuning into every episode of The Ultimate Fighter. I'm not going to lie. I try to catch all the fights so I can at least see, who's coming up and how the tournament's unfolding. But in the past, I haven't been watching, the whole episodes. But I'm actually pretty stoked about this one. I want to watch it.
Well, I watched the last season only because, the UFC PR team send us the screeners to watch,
Right.
So I managed to binge watch the whole thing.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And it was quite good. This one I'm excited for, just because it's got the same premise as the comeback series that Matt Serra won, and essentially you get a title shot. So
Yeah, I mean the stakes being on the line of knowing that, knowing that whoever is going to win is going to have a hell of an uphill battle. I mean, Demetrious Johnson, to me, I was saying it even before John Jones, had his issues, what have you. I thought Demetrious Johnson was already the top pound-for-pound fighter on the planet anyway. I think now that John Jones is out of the mix, at least temporarily, I think people are giving that more credence. But I think the fact that a title is on the line definitely makes it interesting. I think the quality of the fighters that are in there, I mean, sometimes it's a little thin, but to go and pick regional champions.
They're all champions from around the world,
just the visual of all those guys with their belts, I thought that was a cool little visual. But the other thing is, it's flyweights, and I know that, struggle to gain attention, struggle to get exposure, but I love the flyweight division.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, and I'm going to rail slightly against what you're both saying here, is I understand. Oh, Diaz middle fingers coming in my direction from over there.
Keep fingers for me.
But I like the tournament. I like the fact they've gone back to an actual tournament,
Right.
and it feels like a proper tournament. I like the fact they've brought the regional champions in. All of that gives it more credibility. But then they kind of pee on their own bonfire by putting two coaches who would probably smoke the entire field, and they're not going to get the title shot. And that, for me, it's almost like a big contradiction.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest. If they weren't the coaches...
But do you want to see either one of those fights right now? Honestly, do you want to see Benavidez or Cejudo? And no offense to either one of them, because they're definitely... I mean, I was anxious to see Cejudo fight Demetrious for years. I guess he was coming up. I'm like, this is the guy. And then DJ goes out there and handles him. And Benavidez, God bless him, he's the second best flyweight in the world. But I feel like we've established that he's the second best flyweight in the world.
Yeah, it's a really tricky spot because Demetrious Johnson is just too good. He's just too good. If you took him out of that division, if you put him on a sabbatical for a year and then said, right, all bets are off, let's see who the next best guy is, and you had a tournament. If you put Cejudo and Benavidez in that tournament, that'd
be your final.
That would make more sense to me.
Yeah.
And you would expect those two to get to the final, assuming they weren't bracketed in this, together. So yeah, that to me that sits kind of strange, where you've got a guy who's going to win and get a title shot, and there are two guys who are probably a good level above everybody in the tournament.
It's fair.
But it is a problem. Benavidez has fought him twice already. In terms of meritocracy and ability, he's the guy.
He is.
But you can't. It's like Uriah Faber. How many title shots has Uriah Faber had over the years?
Yep.
You get fatigue at that point, and it's like, how many shots are we going to give before we say, look, you've had your go. We need to start bringing fresh faces in. So I just found that a little bit interesting. If they'd have put a couple of legends in there, a couple of ex-world champion legends in there to coach them, I just think it wouldn't have muddied the waters as much.
That's interesting. But even if they weren't included in the tournament, you'd feel better about it? You just feel bad that they're there as coaches? I just think
the fact that they're there, it's like the elephant in the room, It's like these guys are competing for a shot at the title, but the two guys who are coaching them are better than the guys in the tournament. If they're out of the picture, then it just makes the road, it just makes that path to the title shot a little more clearly defined.
I see what you're saying.
But I do understand and like the fact that they've gone for the tournament thing again. And I think it's as a franchise, they need to do something with it. And maybe they need to go regional again and say, like, we're going to, like in my case, the UK, they say, right, we're going to go to the UK and we're going to hold a proper elimination tournament. And we are only going to give out one contract. We're not going to hire 4 guys off the show. It is one guy. And make that contract super valuable.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, like, the Ultimate Fighter 1, you think you go back there. I mean, of course, he ended up having Griffin and Bonner both getting contracts, but there was so much on the line. You're like, one guy is getting in. One guy is getting in. So you're right about that. Well, I'm excited. And I will say one of the assistant coaches of one of the teams in the house told me that the fights were incredible. Like, at the end of the season, was like, dude, trust me, like, the fights are sick. And that's not Dana saying, that's not the promoter going, it's the best season ever. This was somebody that was in there and saw the fights and was like, dude, I'm telling you, it was a badass season. So I'm excited about it. I am. I'm looking forward to watching and seeing how it plays out. I did get a chance to talk to Demetrious Johnson earlier this week. Talked to him about kind of the show itself and got some updates on him as well. See what's going on with him. Find out about the injury status and all that. So while we re-up on a round of frosty beverages over here, because that's what you do.
What are we drinking here, John?
I don't even know what this is. It's a Schwarzbier.
Black beer.
That was my German accent, I guess. Where's cold coffee when you need him? The man of 1,000 accents, all of which sound the same.
the best worst impressions ever, and whatnot.
And what have you. All right, we're going to re-up on these frosty beverages. You listen to the UFC flyweight champ, Mighty Mouse, Demetrious Johnson. Hey, Demetrious, how you doing, man?
What's going on?
Not much. Let's start out with the update on you, man. Give us the health update. I know you're not one to withdraw from fights, man. So when you had to do that, I was a little bit worried. How are things these days?
They're good, man. I think a little bit people got swept under the rug just because, you had John Jones, Brock Lesnar, 200 going on, and so I think mine was the least important thing that was going on in mixed martial arts world, which is totally fine as a boxing once did. But yeah, I had a grade 2 tear on my LCL. Wasn't doing anything abnormal. I was just training and just heard a lot pop my knee. And at first I was like, it might have been, I thought it was my ACL, but it wasn't. I get an MRI. The results come back and they say, it's just a muscle tear in your lateralis, which is the far left quadricep muscle. And so the UFC Dr. Davidson was like, 7 days rehab, you should be back to normal. And I was all right, sounds good. So I did, 7 days of rehab, but something still wasn't right. I was still trying to train to make the July 30th card against Wilson. And then I couldn't even grapple. And I went down to Vegas August 10th to do a show for the Ultimate Fighter 24. Next thing you know, I saw Dr. Davidson, and he got the MRI results in front of me, not the film, just the results. He goes, dude, he says there's just, a tear in your lateralis. So let's do a PRP shot. That way we can suck all the inflammation out of there, you'd be good. And then next thing you know, I go see Dr. Sanders, which is his partner. He's also works with the UFC. And he was taking a look at my leg and examining. I was like, dude, it hurts right fucking here, right in this spot. And he goes, that's your LCL. And I was like, well, whatever the fuck it is, it still hurts. And, backboard. So at first, Dr. Davidson goes, let's do a PRP shot, and let's try to get you on the August 27th card, Canada, which just happened now, Fox 21.
Right.
I said, let's fucking do it, give me more time to heal. Then I saw Dr. Sanders the next day when he was going to administer the PRP shot, and he goes, that's your LCL, dude. He goes, you ligament, and, let's take, 8 to 12 weeks. And he was like, I have your results, but I want your actual film of the MRI. He gets it the same day, and he goes, yeah, dude, you have muscle fibers coming off your bone right now, so you're out August 27th. You're not going to be able to fight until, November, December to be safe. So at first, they misdiagnosed me, not the UFC, the radiologist who read it in PL. So that's the whole thing, but I'm not going to recover. I'm going to start training September 113. My weight's still the same, walking around 140. You know, I had steak, 4 garlic bread slices, 2 salads last night. Life is good. And I had 2 beers, chocolate stout. I'm good.
That's awesome. So you ended up not having to have surgery, though? Is that just something that takes rehab only, or did you have some surgery?
No surgery. You know, with the LCL and the MCL, unless it's the LCL and the ACL, unless it's a full rupture, then you need to get you know, surgery. But even with the MCL, you know, Luke Rockwell had a grade 3. You know, those things when they tear, the MCL you split it, you know, start over. But the LCL, if it completely tears from the bone, you have to get surgery. But for me, luckily I caught it before I even fought on it, and you know, just let it heal naturally. The ACL, if that tears, then you have to get surgery. And same thing with the LCL. But mine was just a grade 2 tear.
Very cool, man. That's good to hear. Well, let's talk about the Ultimate Fighter then, man. You know, they come up with this idea of a whole season of The Ultimate Fighter based around finding somebody to fight you. Man, what's the feeling like when they first announced that? Are you kind of flattered by it? Is it weird? I mean, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, the first time I heard about it was a little, you know, the first time I heard about it wasn't from the UFC. It was from, you know, the guys on my stream.
Right.
And so, you know, at first, you know, I gave my honest opinion about it. But now, you know, I'm totally excited about it. Amazing athletes. They went around the world and got the best, you know, flyweight fighters, you know, champions. You know, not just regular flyweight fighters, champions. And put them in a house, and they basically a tournament of champions. And at the end of that, they get to fight, you know, me, the champ.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, I saw the promo for it this past week where they had like you in the center of the cage and all the fighters around you with their belts and all that. What was filming that like? I mean, all those guys had to be like mean mugging you a little bit.
Well, at first, you know, like that, you know, so you were behind the scenes. It took fucking 6 hours to film that one shot. So with that being said, you know, the first hour was a little, you know, everybody's all pissed off. For me, I don't get. You can be mad at me, you can hate me, you can talk shit about me, and at the end of the day, we still have to fight. So for me, I don't waste the energy. You know, at first it was a little, you know, unsettling. Then, you know, the 3rd hour in, we all started talking, and then the 5th hour in, we're like, we should kick everybody's ass here. We should all team up and kick all the producers' asses. And then, you know, by the 7th hour, we're like, we don't give a fuck about this dog anymore. We just want to go to fucking bed. So it was fun.
Very cool. How involved were you in the season? I mean, obviously you weren't part of it, but I mean, were you getting reports? Were you curious about how the tournament was unfolding? Were you trying to keep tabs on it?
You know, I wasn't. You know, at the end of the day, it's just another fight. You know, that's how all my fights would be in my whole entire career. They're just another fight. So for me, you know, I went out there to the first one show, the opening, and then I went out there and saw the last fight. That's all I need to see. You know, this season's about, you know, who is the best guy who could possibly beat me. So for me, I stay focused on myself. I was more focused on my health, more focused to build on my Twitch, more focused to build on my image, while the UFC is focusing on building the next guy to fight me. Now that show is done, you know, I will focus on myself and get myself ready, go out there, knock the bricks off this pool, and continue on my reign of the division.
That's fun. Kind of an interesting situation. I mean, you've got a couple months to get ready, but you can't talk about who you're fighting. Is that kind of weird for you? You're worried about, you know, doing interviews and things like that, and knowing, you know, you can't say anything.
No, because I've been talking about this. I've already been known who had to fight, since August 10th, and I've already been talking about those on the fighter on my Twitch channel. I mean, I do interviews all fucking day, so when I'm streaming on live, and I just like, I know who I'm fighting, but you guys are never gonna know. I mean, it's easy. They're like, what do you think of him? I was like, just another person. That's all it is.
That's funny. It's true. I guess knowing that fight's going to be at the Palms, I'm assuming that means it's going to be in a small cage too. I mean, you've been fighting in, you know, big arenas and big cages. What do you think about fighting in a small cage again? Is that factoring into your preparation at all?
No, God, I'm even training in the cage, for God's sake. I'm the best fucking cage fighter in the world. I'm even training in the cage. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, everybody.
Very cool. I will say this, I've gotten to watch the first part of the show, and the opening has a lot to do, I mean, with them being very respectful of you. I mean, Joe Rogan mentioning multiple times you're the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Dana calling you the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world. We know what John's going through right now, but it does seem like that's more and more accepted. It's not as controversial of a statement as it once was. Is that flattering to you? I mean, are you excited that seems to be the, you know, what people say now, it's pretty commonplace, that you're the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world?
Well, first, you know, I want to give it, you know, shout out to all the flyweights who took the time out of their lives and out of their out of their career to come to the Ultimate Fighter to make this show happen. You know, if it wasn't for them, you know, this show would not be happening at all. And those guys are nothing but respect. I have nothing but mad respect for every single one of those guys who were in that house. You know, some of the guys, you know, Terrence Mitchell, I met him when I was in Alaska fighting champions when I knocked out Jesse Brock. You know, Danger, he was on the MTV show. So those guys got mad respect for all of the guys in the house. You know, as for being called the pound fighter best in the world, this isn't the first time. You know, there was one point, you know, I was called, even on the UFC rankings, pound best fighter in the world, and then, you know, John Jones got reinstated or whatever, and he blew right past me. And so I was like, so what's the fucking point? You know, it's I don't really get wrapped up in that whole pound for pound best fighter in the world. And, you know, unless it's going to, you know, open up more opportunities for me, which it hasn't yet. You know, who knows how things would pan out for John Jones after, you know, his whole issues get cleared up. And for me, I don't want to be called the best pound fighter in the world in everybody's eyes just because John Jones was, you know, he took some supplement that wasn't to enhance his power. You know, that's essentially why you guys call me the best pound fighter in the world. It's like, well, now that John Jones wants to, you know, use, you know, sexual enhancement pills to get his, you know, love life strong or whatever he's doing, you're now the pound best fighter in the world. Congratulations. That's essentially how it went down. So, in my mind, I know where I stand. I know how good I am. My coaches know how good I am. You know, the people out there who respect, you know, how I can change elevations, you know, grapple, move high clutch, strike, and push the pace. And, you know, I'm the type of guy who takes no supplements. I'm fucking, you know, I'd rather drink beers than have a protein shake. I'd rather drink water instead of, you know, energy drink. So, for me, I want to be, I don't want to be handed that, you know. And people told me, hey, since John Jones out, that makes you the best compound fighter in the world. I don't want it like that. I want to be like, dude, John Jones is fucking active. He has a tear already, but you're still fucking kicking everybody's ass. And your elevation changes, the way you move from art to art. It's just so beautiful. You know, when you drop somebody, you don't stand, you don't make them get back up. You engage in the grappling aspect of it, even though he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. That's what I want to be. That's what I want people to see in order to call me pound for pound. That's because John Jones is out with some, you know, USADA bullshit. And that, for me, I still have more to do to have everybody's eyes see that.
That's awesome, man. All right, brother. Well, it's good catching up with you, man. Last thing I got for you, I mean, are you excited about this season? I mean, it's debuting this week. As you said, you've known for a while, you know, who you're going to fight and what's on the line. But are you excited to see this thing play out and you know, maybe bring some attention to the flyweight division like people are always saying it needs?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I went to go see Star Wars: The Force Awakens, I was in line and somebody says, Kylo Ren is Han Solo and Princess Leia's son. I was like, you cocksucker! Basically ruined the movie for me because you have this guy who was Kylo Ren, and at that point I was like, you know what? I want to see how the story became. Why did he go to the dark side? How did this happen? So since for me, I know, you know, who the winner is of the show. But I want to see his path. I want to see how he got there. So I'm excited for the episode. I'm also excited to see Joseph and him and Cejudo have beef. I mean, the beautiful thing about television or whatever is that if you're a part of it, you can see the behind the scenes. And let me tell you, the last shot of him and Cejudo and Joseph Benavidez, they probably won't show it because it was just cuss word after cuss word after cuss word, which was purely organic. But they won't use it. Dude, that drama right there will bring way more eyes to the flyweight division than the show because they truly don't like each other and they're talking shit in front of each other. And I was sitting there laughing all the time. I'm like, why are you guys talking like this? You guys are adults. They were like, So, but yeah, I'm super excited for the show and I can't wait for it. So I'm excited about it, man.
Very cool. Awesome, brother. Well, hey, I know you got some more interviews to do, so thanks for the time, brother. Always good to talk to you.
No worries about it.
Yeah. Welcome back to the MMA Roadshow. That was Demetrious Johnson. Couple things. First of all, I thought it was interesting because, you know, I'm sure you guys probably saw that there may be a potential spoiler out there. We've seen somebody that says this is what I think the results are. I don't know if that's true. I actually go out of my way to not know. Like when I hear somebody start talking, I mean, obviously, you know, we're around all these people, and sometimes you start hearing people talk. I'm like, stop, because I want to be able to watch the show. And it does, to me, if you know the results, it kind of ruins it. And it's interesting. I mean, this is that same situation that Josh Gross found himself in back in the comeback season, where he said, "No, this is news. A title fight is on the line. I think our readers want to know this." And then there's the argument too, like, wait a minute, your readers might want to watch the show and you ruin it for them. So it's funny for Demetrious Johnson to say in that interview there, he was talking about having the Star Wars movie ruined for him while he's standing outside waiting in line. He wants to see the story unfold, and I don't know. I find that such an interesting position because it's it's our job as reporters to report news. But sometimes I wonder if there's news your fans and your readers don't want to know because they do want to watch the fights.
Yeah.
Or something like Brock Lesnar's coming back to the UFC.
Right.
So,
well, see, that's different to me because
I think that is news.
Yeah, to me that's news. Like the whole Ariel Helwani thing, the UFC getting pissed at him, because to me that's news, and I think you're okay to report that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, well, you ruined the promo for him. Well, to me, I don't know, man.
That's what it was essentially, right?
You ruined the promo. I see that one. I don't worry about. I don't think about. But this one, it does make me. And again, I don't know if that spoiler is right or wrong. So I'm not saying the one that we saw, whether it is or not.
I haven't seen any spoilers, so don't.
That's why I'm not telling you where I heard it. Or
Here's the thing. Even if you think that information is of relevance to an element of your audience, there's ways of framing it. So I believe it went out as a tweet just saying,
right.
I understand, blah, 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 right? What it should have said was,
if you want to know the winner,
spoiler
click here.
alert, and then put it somewhere, and then, so whether it's below the fold or whether it's...
But of course, once you do that, then it goes everywhere, right? So.
But that's if people want to report on that.
On the report.
Then that's up to them. But I mean, if you put your checks and balances in there so that it doesn't just say, bang, right in your face the result, because everybody follows various people and various outlets on Twitter, and people read in 140 characters, and if they're anything like I am, you skim read your feed, and then stuff will leap out at you, and then you'll stop at that tweet, and then you'll go in and you'll read it. But if a live result hits you in the face, and you didn't want to see it, you can't take that back again.
It's an interesting argument. The other thing I thought that Demetrious was saying that I thought was cool is it sounds like the beef between Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo is very, very real. They really do not like each other. They have had this contempt building against each other for quite some time. I think Joseph Benavidez feels that Henry Cejudo basically tried to duck him on the way up to the top. So I'm kind of interested to see how all that plays out on screen, because from what he describes at the end of the season, it sounds like it was not quite Gadelha Jacek-esque, but it sounds like the beef was very real. I will say this. I don't know if you guys have thought about this yet. The tough finale, that's where the title fight is going to take place. That's where the co-main event is going to take place between the coaches, so that should be a hell of a card. But that is going to take place at the Palms in Las Vegas. The Palms cannot hold a big cage. The Palms is a small cage venue. Could change things up. Demetrious Johnson, again, we don't know the opponent yet, so we don't know what their style is. But you think about one of the things about Demetrious Johnson is that speed and that movement and that he has. He's been fighting in big cages because he's been on pay-per-views and Fox and that sort of thing. I know maybe we're grasping at straws here, but could that maybe factor in the fact this is going to be DJ in a small cage, a WCS cage, less space to work? Maybe somebody can find a way to negate his speed and his movement.
It's such a small thing, but when you're taking on Demetrious Johnson, anything you can latch onto is a benefit, right? So, if you can get your hands on DJ and go to work on him, then obviously you've got a better chance. And so he's got less real estate to play with. But I'll be honest, he's just too damn good.
He's amazing.
He's just too damn good, and I completely agree with you. He is the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and he has been for about 18 months.
It's incredible.
Is it going to be big news when someone beats him there?
Inside the community,
yes, but outside,
it won't be an Anderson Silva loss, a Ronda Rousey loss,
and that's tragic, right?
It is tragic
because watching him fight is just a thing of beauty and
complete mixed martial artist.
Yeah, I'm just disgusted when people walk out on his fights.
It's ridiculous. What is going to be funny is though, people talk about maybe when it does happen because everybody loses. Maybe it will be good for the fight. Maybe that will be what the flyweight division needs. Because you think about it, everybody used to say the middleweight division sucked when Anderson Silva was reigning supreme. Now, Granted, new talent has come in since then, but the middleweight division looks pretty good. Everybody said, the problem with the women's bantamweight division is it's a one-woman race. It's Ronda Rousey. Then she loses, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, whoa, well, there's a hell of a lot of good fighters in the women's bantamweight division. So, maybe that's what's going to take for people to pay attention to flyweight. I don't know. Okay, listen, if you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Go on iTunes, rate us, review us, say good words about it. We appreciate it. If you're German, you could be the first one. I went to the Germany iTunes store, not a single rating or review.
That's terrible.
Germany, step your game up.
Yeah.
But, leave us some good words. Go in there and do that. While you're at it, you could also subscribe to the BritPack.
You certainly could.
Yeah, if you so inclined. Our good man, Shamakar Sandhu, Simon Head as well. You guys are a couple episodes in. I wasn't sure if I could sign off on it until it was the latest episode that really signed me off, because you guys had some very important discussion about Buffalo Wild Wings versus Nando's, and that's the kind of key breakdowns I think people need. And I, Simon Head, stand in full support of you. As much as I love Nando's, B-dubs is where it's at. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different.
Whoa.
Sandhu can't weigh in because Sandhu has not had the experience that Simon Head has had. Because once you have gone in to a Buffalo Wild Wings at 5 o'clock in the morning and sat down and had you some frosty beverages and some hot wings, big TVs everywhere, that's when you realize B-dubs, especially at Warm Springs and Durango, that's a game changer.
And also, if you're really lucky and you end up in Buffalo Wild Wings at 5 a.m. with John Morgan eating beautiful fried chicken, drinking cold beer, he may invite you on the Uber chopper.
I knew that.
That
was
is
coming.
not a euphemism.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, we Simon Head hopefully learned a life lesson. One night it was myself, you, Angelo Reyes, having a couple frosty beverages, and Uber was doing a special for $99. They would pick you up wherever you were, take you to their helicopter strip, right there at the base of the strip, right there at McCarran Airport, take you on a helicopter tour, drop you off, a helicopter tour of the strip, drop you back off, and then Uber you back to wherever you were that they picked you up from, all for $100 a person. Now, granted, we were a couple frosty beverages in at the time, but I was like, this is brilliant. Let's do it. And Simon was like, no, man, that's a terrible idea. Hi, Luciana. Simon was trying to be the voice of reason and say, you guys, this is a terrible idea. We shouldn't do that. And because I was a couple frosty beverages deep, I don't always make the best decisions. And I thought, you know what? Here's somebody trying to be the voice of reason, and me, John Morgan, should listen to reason. And if he's saying no, then you know what? That's probably the best idea. And you know what, man? Good stories are not made through making reasonable decisions.
This is true. I mean, when I got home and I told my wife about this, she was like, "You idiot! Why didn't you do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, probably." I think my argument was, if we weren't absolutely hammered, and I actually had some camera gear with me, so I could have actually captured it, then we would have done it. But there's a very real chance I would have vomited all over the inside of that helicopter.
That would have been a great story.
That would have been great. And on camera.
So listen, UFC 202. Mike Perry made a spectacular debut, right? Got that TKO win over Hung Yu Lim, looked fantastic. Afterward, audio came out. Mike Perry's cornerman, fellow UFC fighter Alex Nicholson, was making some racist comments towards Hung Yu Lim. No other way to say it. The UFC did actually issue a statement not that long ago. They did review it. They issued a statement. The statement's up on MMAjunkie, but basically to summarize, they said, listen, we're disappointed by his insensitive remark. We've warned him it will not, a further instance like this will result in some kind of, action against him. For now, it's basically just a warning. I want to ask you guys about this because, and it's interesting because, Abbey, we've been some places where you felt like you were being treated with some racial undertones on our journeys covering MMA. And, I can remember specifically without, naming the location. But I know you felt pretty upset about it. And certainly, man, there's no place in the world for racism, man. I mean, there's just not. man, it's 2016. This is a small. I mean, look at the number of nations represented at this table. We're sitting here. You know, I mean, we travel all over the world. I think once you travel a little bit and see the world, you realize, man, we're just fucking people, dude. Like, nobody's better than us. But I will say this, and I feel weird even saying this, because I feel like I'm somebody that believes we should, like, there is no place for racism, there is no place for sexism, there is no place for. So I maybe I'm just being a complete dumbass in saying this, but like, I almost feel like in a corner of a cage fight where you're about to go in there and have hand-to-hand combat against another human being hell-bent on doing destruction to you, you kind of get a pass. Like, if you're like, you know, F this N-word or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but I mean, it's corner audio, and I don't know, man. I feel stupid. I'm not going to lie. I feel stupid even saying it, but I almost feel like, too, like, you almost get a free pass. Like,
just looking at it from, I disagree. I disagree, because at the end of the day, we're still looking at this thing as a sport. We still want it to be a sport,
right?
You know, yeah. It's at the end of the day, it's two people fighting in a cage, right? But we've tried to legitimize it in the sense that, you know, there's rules, there's, you know, regulations. We're still trying to make it a legit sport.
It's a fair point.
I don't think
I don't
think racism has a place anywhere. You know.
No, I agree. Like in soccer or stuff, you know, or football, as you guys call it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, some of the stuff that I've seen is disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely disgusting what you see. And I definitely think it's unacceptable. Now that's a sporting competition. That's high level stakes. I mean, you know, millions and billions of dollars on the line. But I absolutely agree with you. There's no place for it. I agree. There's no place. You're right. I feel
it's a closed-minded situation. That's what I think it is.
I guess maybe what I feel. I guess you know, more than me saying that I think it's okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's okay that he got a verbal warning here.
Here's the thing.
You know what I mean? Like, let's acknowledge it. Let's address it. But, like, I saw some people saying, like, call for his job, you know, whatever.
No, you know,
I don't know. It's so.
I'm of the view that when it comes to stuff like racism, sexism, homophobia, heat of the moment is no defense. It isn't. And what happens in the heat of the moment is you'll say things that your filter just completely disappears at that point. And what comes out is what's in your head, right? Now, for whatever reason, he said what he said. The issue is the fact that he actually said it, and you can't, you just can't do that. And I understand people say things that they regret when they get angry or when they get fired up and all the rest of it, but there's a line, and I would say. Anything that refers to anything racial, homophobic, anything along those lines, that's on the wrong side of the line.
No, you guys are making a lot of sense. I guess in my head I was thinking, like, you know, if the guy's in the corner and you're like I'm cornering you, Abby, and I'm like, Abby, that dude tried to fuck your mom, or you know what I mean? Like you're basically just coming up with something weird or whatever. You know, you're just trying to you're trying to And because there are, in this sport, there are athletes and there are fighters. And I think the ones that are fighters, like, you see, I mean, I think there's certain guys in the sport, they need to have, like, some hate in them. You know, there's some that don't. They say, no, this is an intellectual game. I need to be able to think. I need to be calm. There's others that, like, and especially if you harken back to the older days, but as you said, we're trying to legitimize it, Abby. So I guess that was kind of where I was coming from, is, like, if you're almost creating this, like, you know, fake, false narrative or whatever, because you're just trying to instill, like, hatred, like, that guy, you know, whatever it is. I don't know what it is.
There's plenty of ways to vent hate, you know, or psych someone up. You never have to pull out the race card.
Yeah. Because the minute you do that, you've basically got no leg to stand on in terms of
you're opening
your credibility.
You're opening like Pandora's box there, because there's people that are going to take it. You know, there's people that are going to take offense, and there's people that are going to take offense.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I saw all sorts on Twitter. I saw all sorts on Twitter that, you know, people were just disgusted. People, like you said, calling for his job, calling for his head. You know, and people, like, at one point, people didn't know who it was. You know, people.
Right, they just thought it was a cornerman. They didn't know it was another guy on the roster.
Exactly. So they didn't know who it was, and people just wanted to know.
I'll be honest, I'm surprised they didn't cut him. Honestly, especially given the new ownership and the fact that of all the situations, they're gonna, the new partnership that have got the ownership of the UFC, this UFC business that has become more and more buttoned up as we've gone along, is going to be even more buttoned up and even more media friendly, even more celebrity friendly. We're going to start seeing the UFC reported in outlets other than sporting outlets. We're going to see celebrity outlets talking about Luke Rockhold dating Demi Lovato and all that sort of stuff. It's outgrowing just the hardcore element of it.
It's crossing over into
and
something.
that doesn't mean if it is just a hardcore sport you can control it within that. But once it gets bigger, you've got eyeballs looking at it and ears listening to it who have far less understanding of the sport, but they will make snap judgments on things they see, things they hear. And for the UFC and for their owners who've made a $4 billion investment, stuff like that is potentially very damaging. So
no, you're right. You know what? You guys are making some good points, man. I think you've changed my position out, to be honest. I think you guys have educated me. I kind of wanted to not give him a free pass, but I think but I did kind of. I felt like there was like some understanding. But no, you guys are right.
I understand where you're coming from in the sense that, in the heat of the moment you say things, but if you say something racist in the heat of the moment, that's inside of you. That means that that's what you really think. Yeah,
it's like saying you did something dumb just because you were drunk or whatever. Like, nah, come on,
no.
That's a good point. You guys are smart. Well, I can already tell you that that I'm an asshole anyway, because on the flight over here, from Chicago to Dusseldorf, the flight was set up where it was 2 seats, 4 seats, and 2 seats. Right. I always go for the aisle. So that way if I need to get up, I don't have to bother anybody. So I always go for the aisle. I was in the 2 seats, and I had the aisle. The window seat next to me was empty. Now on the 4 seat over here, there was it was full, and on the aisle there was a lady and her baby, probably I want to say like maybe 6 months or so, sat down, and the plane was still boarding or whatever. But in my head, I thought, you know what, man, if this seat stays empty, I'm just gonna give it to this lady and her baby, like, because it made me think of my wife and kid. They've done some traveling by herself, and I know how hard it is. And I was like, they would probably appreciate a little bit of extra space, because with a lap baby, you don't buy a seat, you just hold them. And I was like, I'm gonna give up my seat. And then I sat there while the plane was boarding, and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, we were like a couple hours into the journey, and that seat next to me was still empty, and this lady was over here like with her baby, and I felt like an asshole. She was. I know the whole time she was probably sitting there just looking at me.
You're
like,
an asshole, John.
Look at that empty seat over there. So,
John Morgan.
No, but you fell asleep, man.
I did. But then I could have. When I woke up, I could have been like, well, she was. When I woke up, she was asleep.
Okay. And
the baby was asleep. But I thought about, like, well, but maybe I could offer. And then finally when we were both awake, there were only like 2 hours left, and then I was just like, well, fuck it.
Yeah,
that's just a token gesture at that point.
You know what I mean?
Situations, man. That's what happened.
All right. Well, listen, we were speaking of UFC 202 there. Another interesting story that came out of that. I know everything was Diaz-McGregor, or McGregor-Diaz now that he's the winner, which would be the trilogy. But another interesting story was Tim Means, of course, who fought on that card. Picked up a big win there. He had been facing a 2-year suspension right in the face, was able to prove that he had no idea. He actually did have a legit tainted supplement issue, and was able to get that suspension reduced to 6 months. I know he didn't even want to take the 6 months, but people wait 6 months between fights all the time. No big deal. He was able to come back. So I had been kind of inquiring about that, and I had a chance to speak earlier this week to Jeff Novitzky. And to kind of just get some ins and outs. Even though the situation's passed, I figured, what can you tell me about this? What can we learn from this? What lessons are there? And had a chance to speak to him on record, and so I figured, hey, let's play that for the road show. So while we re-up again on the frosted beverages, because they're going down smooth over here, listen to the man who is known in some circles as the Black Cloud, Jeff Novitzky.
What's up, man?
Not much, man. I know you and I have joked in the past that you're kind of the guy that has to deliver the bad news, and it's a bad thing when you call and that sort of thing. But in kind of hearing Tim talk about the situation, it sounds like you were really involved in this thing every little step of the way and kind of helped guiding his defense, so to speak. So I guess, can you just explain what role you played? And I mean, is that your duties, or did you go above and beyond? Is that the job position? Kind of explain to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, first off, yeah, this is another one of those tough calls. I vividly recall, just got notice, and I called him, making sure he saw notice, and he was at a loss at that time. He said, Jeff, I have no idea even what this substance is. I don't know how it entered into my system. But yeah, John, as I see it, absolutely my role, that I'm here as an advocate for our athletes, and that the fact that USADA administers our program, my positioning is, hey, to make sure that they are dealt with fairly under the program, that there's due process, that I provide them as many tools as possible. That doesn't mean, someone who's intentionally cheating or intentionally doping. If I see that to be the case, then hey, they're on their own. But there's a lot of nuances in the anti-doping world, and it's kind of scary. There's a lot of landmines out there, and yeah, a big part of my job is hopefully educating on the front end so that situations like this never come up. But if they do, seeing if there's any mitigating circumstances, that arise or that happen that, athletes can get a break on. And definitely this was, a perfect example of how this whole thing transpired.
I was going to say, what can you say about it? Because, I hate to be, pessimistic or whatever, but a guy says tainted supplement. That seems to be almost like the go-to defense when a flag is raised. So, was it something in particular that led you to believe that, hey, I think Tim's being honest here, and let's get to the bottom of this?
Well, I see my role as I always have to believe an athlete until they give me reason not to. So even, if it's a common defense or even an outlandish defense, until I get reasoning to not believe them, I'm going to believe them. So in this case, Tim said, hey, I don't know what this is. I've never taken anything. Can you help me? So the first thing I thought, and I actually brought it up, I said, hey, what supplements are you using? He gave me the list of supplements, and I started contacting my sources within the industry. So my most previous job to coming here was with the FDA, who oversees, regulates, enforces laws in the supplement industry. And so over the course of my tenure there, I developed a lot of sources within the industry, and sources that I still reach out to and call. And so I had a list of substances and a list of supplements, and started making those calls. Hey, had anybody heard anything about these companies? And right off the bat, one stuck out. And so we narrowed in on that one actually pretty quickly. And the scary thing with it is it was a rather benign supplement. A lot of times, these testosterone boosters, pre-workout supplements, advertising, muscle growth, things like that. Those are high risk, red flag, and all of our athletes are educated on that. This substance happened to be creatine, and on the ladder of risk, creatine, in my experience, is near the lower end. It's not a high risk supplement. Although again, we educate our athletes that you can never avoid risk altogether when you're talking about the supplement industry, but we encourage them to, lower that risk as much as possible. So it turned out to be a creatine. We did some further research, and the same manufacturer manufactured other products which were somewhat suspicious or higher risk. And Tim happened to have some of the supplement left, happened to find later a sealed bottle of it. And USADA, I think, showing their fairness and due process based on some of the facts that we had accumulated, said, okay, we'll go ahead and test this. And sure enough, the test results came back, and not only was the substance in it, USADA needs to go further than that. As you said, hey, is this a bogus explanation? What if they took the substance and then knew that a supplement was tainted, they could use that as their defense? So USADA goes further than just the substance being a supplement. They're testing the levels that's in that supplement. They'll interview the athlete. How much of this did you take? How often did you take? And then go to their science people and say, hey, science-wise, does this make sense based on the level we found in the supplement, based upon the athlete's story about how often, how much they were taking? Does it make sense? In this case, it made perfect sense. All of the things fit together, and USADA determined that while there was still some liability there, because That's part of our education. You're liable if you choose to use these supplements, knowing there's going to be a risk if something does end up happening. There would have to be a lot of extenuating circumstances to get off, without any punishment. But basically, Tim's went from 2 years to 6 months.
Has the name of the manufacturer been made public, whoever it was that was manufacturing these bogus pills, basically?
It's been included on USADA's high-risk list, which all of our athletes have access to. So it's on there. We haven't specifically identified it. Tim hasn't. I know Tim's involved in, I believe, some litigation with the company, and it's been advised by his attorneys that it would be in the best interest of the litigation not to disclose specifically what the product and manufacturer was in regards to Tim's case, but it has been included on USADA's site, so that when our athletes are looking through that site, they know that there's an issue with this supplement.
Makes sense. What other safeguards do you have in place, Jeff? You've got this high-risk list. I know the continued education. There is the opportunity for guys to get pills tested, correct?
No, well, there's not. They'd have to do it at their own expense. I mean, that'd just be, I think if every athlete threw in every supplement that they were taking and got it tested, the expenses would be, astronomical. Here's what I advise. There's companies out there in regards to supplements. They're called third-party certification companies. And 3 of the most prominent here in the United States are NSF, Informed Choice, and BSCG, Banned Substance Control Group. It's a company run by Dr. Don Catlin, who operated at UCLA Olympic Testing Laboratory for a period of time. What these companies do, they're independent of the supplement manufacturers. The supplement manufacturers hire them to basically do what you just asked, test the product. So every lot of raw ingredient that comes in from a manufacturer, they send some to the third-party certification company. They test it for every banned substance under the WADA program. Every lot of product that's manufactured, samples of those bottles from that lot are sent to the third-party certification companies. They test those for every banned substance under the WADA code. And many of them, the real good ones, actually go out and they audit the manufacturing facilities to ensure they're following good manufacturing processes, to make sure there's no cross-contamination issues, to make sure the machines are being cleaned off. So what I tell our guys, again, you can never say 100%. If you want 100%, just, don't go near supplements. But that lowers the risk to almost nothing. I mean, these companies, these third-party certification companies, basically are staking their reputations and likely their existence on the fact that they're saying that these supplements are banned substance-free. And what I do with many of our athletes, in fact, most of them, I send them the links to those companies, and they have links on their websites that list every supplement that they certify as safe. And between the 3 of those, and there's other ones out there, there's 500, 600, maybe more. So what I tell our fighters is, look, whatever the category of supplement it is, as long as it's a legitimate category, you have dozens of choices in that category. If you want to take a protein, there's probably hundreds of proteins that are certified. If you want to take a creatine, if you want to take a multivitamin, go to these lists, and it gives you that, extra, very solid, in my opinion, level of protection.
Very interesting. In this situation, Jeff, I mean, I know, like you said, your job's not always fun, but I don't know, is there any kind of level of satisfaction? I mean, here's a guy that was facing a 2-year suspension. He had this stuff in his body, but it turns out he didn't willingly know it. Do you have any kind of personal satisfaction, maybe helping a guy get a little justice?
100%. Yeah, I mean, it's the best part of my job doing things like this. Being able to use my experience to help out our athletes. I try to help them out on the front end by providing the education, the deterrent, but sometimes things happen, and to be able to, to do something like this. And I got to say, Tim dealt with this situation as professionally, as patiently, as analytically as any athlete I have ever had interaction with. And that's athletes both here in the UFC and then previous career that got caught up in some of these anti-doping things. He handled it perfectly. He listened to me. He followed, directions, advice. He didn't fly off the handle, off the hook. And, someone who doesn't know they're using something, God, I'd have a hard time being in their shoes, not just being so frustrated and then kind of giving up the process. He stuck with the process throughout the entire course of it, listened to advice, and and he saw what happened. So I think there's lessons to learn on both sides of this and what Tim did. Number one, hey, on the front side, Tim was pretty careful. It was not a high-risk supplement. He listed it on his collection form with USADA. The only thing maybe he didn't do on the front end was choose a supplement that was third-party certified. And then on the back end, hey, he followed the process, listened to advice. He got a really good legal representation that has been in the game of representing athletes in anti-doping cases, and it could have been a lot worse for him, certainly.
No doubt. Well, educational as always. A lot of good information there. Any other, lessons or thoughts or anything that fighters or fans or even us as media can learn out of this Tim Means situation?
Yeah, I think we're early on in the program still. So, I think that, and we certainly thought this despite, the tremendous amount of effort we put into ensuring that this wouldn't happen. Occasionally things do happen, early on, which, unfortunately for Tim wasn't a pleasant experience, but we try to take that unpleasant experience and make a teaching tool out of it. So, hopefully, most, if not all of our fighters have looked at this and seen the things Tim did right and the small thing that he did wrong on the front end that caused this to happen. But certainly hope every one of these, not only instances like this, but instances where, fighters are caught doing things intentionally. We hope that despite being bad for us, business-wise, that long-term they're good teaching points and lessons, and we don't run into a lot of these more in the future.
Welcome back to the MMA Roadshow. That was Jeff Novitzky, a good dude. Unfortunately, his position is not always a lot of fun. He has to deliver a lot of bad news, hence the black cloud. It's usually bad news coming in. But I think he was able to educate us there that sometimes, he was the one that was guiding Tim Means every step along the way and helping him get through this whole thing. And I thought there was some cool insight there, some cool lessons. The biggest one I take out of it that I was actually misinformed about was I thought that the UFC – that athletes could come and have their products tested, and as he explained there, no, we can't test every athlete's products. The cost of that would be astronomical. But the biggest lesson I saw, there's that third-party company certification, massively important, man. Do not put anything in your body if you're an athlete if you don't have that, because you just can't risk what's on the other end, man. 2 years can be very costly, not only in immediate income, but income down the line. So not worth the risk. All right, UFC Fight Night 93, Andre Arlovski versus Josh Barnett on UFC Fight Pass. Excited about that. Fight Pass shows, I love Fight Pass shows. The pacing is so great. They don't have the hours of commercials that have to be fit in. It's so fun. Andre Arlovski comes in as the slight underdog in this. It's getting closer to pick, but money is coming in Arlovski. You started out as a higher underdog. Money is coming in late. We'll start with you, Simon. What do you think about this main event? Are you leaning one way or the other? I know we've turned in our media picks. By the time this comes out, some people might have seen that already, but I didn't see what you filmed. Give me a little preview. What are you thinking?
I flip-flopped on this one. Normally, what I've seen a trend in MMA over the last 12 to 18 months that if you have a close matchup, the better striker normally comes out on top. Mm-hmm. So I initially was siding towards Arlovski, but the closer the fighters become, I've started to lean back towards Josh Barnett, and I've gone with Josh Barnett to win by submission, sort of round 3-ish.
Right.
I just think he's got a little bit too much all-round game. He's very durable, is Josh. I think Arlovski can be got at, and I think he'll wear him down. But I do think it's a fascinating matchup. And if Arlovski can fight on the balls of his feet and stay mobile, I can see him winning the fight with his striking. It's a really close fight. In some ways, it's a throwback fight because you've got Arlovski, who is predominantly a striker. He's got the sambo, but you've got basically a striker against Josh Barnett. I don't think there's anyone in the UFC with the blend of skills that Josh Barnett has. He's got this catch wrestling background.
Right.
I spoke to him about that at length at Media Day today. He says it's a massively underrated skill, and the reason why it hasn't been picked up is because there just aren't the people out there to teach it. Ironically, when he retires, he might be the guy. But right now, he's very hard to prepare for. He's got a very unique set of skills.
Yes, he does.
He's very, very seasoned. and I just think he might hold the edge. I think he's got more ways to win the fight. So I in the end, I sided with him. But it's a fascinating contest. I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Abby, you're the one that puts together the edits on these media picks every week. So if you guys are fans of the work that we all do, bringing in our international brethren, our friends from around the world to give their predictions, Abby's the one that ultimately puts that whole thing together. But we don't you don't ever turn the camera around and put yourself on. So let's turn that camera around right now. Who you got?
I've got. I've been flip-flopping on this as well, Si. But yeah, I'm going with Josh Barnett. Just because I've been watching the B-roll. I've been watching the B-roll as
It's funny, man, when you do that. When you sit down and watch the B-roll, it forces you to watch that footage.
Yeah, and so because the B-roll that the UFC provided us with was like more 20 seconds of them walking out and 10 seconds of them fighting. I had nothing. I couldn't take away anything from that. So I went back to old B-roll that we have in our archives, and I was looking at Josh Barnett, and he, like, when he comes out against strikers, he'll almost instantly shoot for the double leg and then hold him up against the fence or whatever.
Right.
So, and I can see him doing that against Andrei Arlovski. Unless Andrei Arlovski gets comes out the gate like a bat out of hell and just starts striking like he did against Travis Brown, Bigfoot Silva. It's that's where it could happen for Arlovski, but. If Barnett's patient and weathers the storm, I think he can do it. That's how I see it.
It's a tough one. I haven't heard anybody yet that's like, dude, I have such a good read on this fight. Let me tell you, it's automatically how it's going to happen. I actually, like you guys, was kind of going back and forth as well. I ended up going with Andrei Arlovski. The thing is, in his recent losses, the problem that he's shown is that, he gets tagged and he doesn't necessarily have the chin. I know he doesn't like to necessarily hear that, but, I mean, you look at the losses and that's what it's been. But I don't know that Josh Barnett's going to come out and be able to actually, really just strike with him, go toe-to-toe and bang with him. Now, the clinch position, I think he could definitely do some damage in the clinch, not even just from a submission game, but just do some striking work in there as well. But I do feel like Arlovski definitely has a striking edge, definitely has a speed edge, the movement edge. You got to think. I mean, it's one of those where it's kind of wild because there's not question marks. I mean, we've seen both these guys fight so many times. We know what they're capable of, what they're going to do, and you got to think that Arlovski's going to have a game plan that's basically use that footwork, stay light on your feet, as you said, Simon, and just stay the hell out of the clinch. And I think if he can pull that off, he can do it. But there's always the concern that he does get tagged, like in a transition or final. I mean, I think his grappling is good enough that he can stay out of problems with Josh Barnett. But can he not get hit when he's in those transitions? That's what's going to be interesting to see. So I went with Arlovski, but I wouldn't recommend anybody put their mortgage payment on it because this is a close fight. Co-main event: Alexander Gustafsson, Jan Blachowicz. Man, the thing I took out of today and the media day is that I really feel like Gustafsson was kind of the media darling. I feel like that's the one that most people wanted to speak to. I think that was almost like the biggest story. And again, part of that may be just because Arlovski and Barnett, they're veterans. They've done thousands of interviews. And Gustafsson is like in this career crossroads, it would seem. Whether or not, he was close to walking away or close to retiring or he was joking or whatever else. I mean, he's definitely had some difficult moments. But I feel like this is a good spot for him. Like, this is kind of a low-pressure spot. He's not fighting in Sweden. He's not the main event. I feel like, now, he's a huge favorite in this, and rightfully so. He's the better fighter. But Blachowicz is no joke, man. If he gets a hold of you, it could be problems. But, I think that Gustin's good enough, long enough, fast enough, that he can stay away. But I don't know. It's kind of an interesting spot for Alex, but I feel like it's a good spot. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
It almost feels like a showcase fight,
Yeah.
It's one of those where Gustafsson's been operating in the top 2 or 3 for the last 18 to 24 months, maybe even longer. Since 2013, and he has dropped some results. He's picked up a few wins and then he's dropped results again. So he does need to go a couple of rungs down the ladder just to get the momentum going again, because you don't want to just be going from number 2 to number 3 to number 2 to number 3 and alternating wins and losses. Drop down, fight a ranked guy in Blachowicz, beat him, hopefully for him, win impressively. That then builds the momentum then. And you work your way back up the ladder again. And then when you do get a crack at the a top 2 guy, you're doing it with 2 or 3 wins under your belt. You've got more sort of momentum behind you. Momentum is such a massive thing in this sport, and it's very, very hard to get at the elite level. So this is a big opportunity for him to really get back on the horse, so to speak, and really kick on. He should win this fight handily, and if he can get it done, I mean, he said to me that he fancies a very quick knockout in this fight. So I'm looking forward to seeing if he can back up that claim.
Should say quickly as you were laying that out, the gentleman that walked behind you was that damn Dave Lewis, who, in honor of Cold Coffee, who's not here, a Burt Watson given nickname was Cold Coffee. So was that damn Dave Lewis after, from what I understand, was kind of a long night of getting Roadshow ready. There was some misunderstandings, some mishaps, and the inimitable Burt Watson said, that damn Dave Lewis, he ain't no good to me. And that damn Dave Lewis has remained his nickname ever since. And a man behind the scenes that does a lot of work that you might never have heard of, but is a good human being. And when I saw him, it made me think about Burt Watson. Had to throw that out there. What about you, Abbey? Alexander Gustafsson, what are you feeling about him? You're talking to him. You and Stephen Morocco had a chance to talk to him a little bit. I don't want to say emotional, but interesting.
I'm just glad to see Gus back. Going off from what Simon said, that this looks like a showcase fight, almost tailor-made for him to win. But speaking to Blachowicz, like he said that, we've trained together, and I like the fact that he thinks the person that he's faced in the gym is the person that he's going to fight. So that tweaked my interest.
That's intriguing.
Yeah, but Gustafsson, every time I've been in his presence or I've seen interviews on him, it's going off the last year. It's just like, oh, tell us about the fact that you've lost motivation and what brought you back and stuff like that. Gus is like, oh my God, I just said it once and it just when. To be fair, he brought it on himself. He sent out that tweet on April Fool's Day saying that he's retiring and stuff like that, which went mad. And then all right, he said he said it on Ariel's show that he'd lost motivation or something, but everyone just keeps playing on that, and you can tell today when Stephen went and asked him the same question. He got a little annoyed. Yeah, he seemed frustrated with that question, with that line of questioning, and why it's always coming up. Like, he mentioned it once, and well, bro, you're a celebrity. You're one of the top fighters in the world. When you say something, we listen.
Well, when Conor McGregor, tweeted out that he was, catch us later, thanks for the cheese, and we all knew, we were like, come on, dude, he ain't retiring. This is garbage.
Exactly.
But it became the most retweeted tweet of any athlete of the year or whatever, and then you have to answer questions about it. You have to talk about it. It's it's on SportsCenter. You got to be careful when you say there's no sarcasm font or on there on social media.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see Gus back. I want him, like he said what he said in the interview. You can check it out on MMAjunkie.com.
Cheap plug.
Yeah, was that he still believes he's one of the best in the world. Yep. I still believe that. But he's had 2 chances. But he says third time's a charm. So let's see. I mean, Blachowicz is the first stepping stone. It doesn't put him back in the mix.
No.
But it certainly just reminds us that he's there.
If John Jones does face more repercussions than we think, or than Dana White has suggested, then maybe he does get kind of back in the mix. But you're right. Right now, there's no reason to even talk about title because you've got one title challenger already teed up, ready to go, and possibly another if John Jones comes back. So no reason to talk about it. But we'll see how the performance is. If he can wow some people on Saturday night, and depending on what happens with John Jones, maybe things will change. While we're here to cover the UFC, of course, at MMA Junkie, we're covering it all for you. World Series of Fighting has 4 more events scheduled this year, including one that they have on New Year's Eve in New York, which is interesting. I mean, to go to New Year's Eve on New York, which is already busy and crazy as it is, it's kind of wild, but they've got some big fights being lined up. I did have a chance to talk earlier this week with CEO Carlos Silva. Micah Fromwitz actually was on the call briefly as well. You'll hear him chime in a little bit. And if you don't know Micah Fromwitz, he's a long-time PR guy that's been around the game for a long time. was a big part of the Strikeforce era, the pre-Zuffa Strikeforce era. Dude has deep ties in there. So when you hear a voice that you don't recognize, that's a Fromowitz as a former New Yorker chiming in. But just did want to talk about what World Series of Fighting is planning, why they decided to go to New Year's Eve in New York, which is it's kind of damn busy there. The traffic might be a problem. So figured let's just go to the man himself. Let's go to the CEO, Carlos Silva, and let him explain. Well, listen, I wanted to get caught up with you because I understand there's some changes to the fall schedule, and you've got some news as far as how things are going to shake out for the rest of the year. So what can you share on what's being done and kind of the thought process behind making the shakeup a little bit?
Yeah, pretty. It looks pretty good. I'm pretty excited about it. October 7th in Kansas City. Excited to go to Kansas City. It's a new market for us, and we decided to kind of open the season up with what we're calling like a super show. We've actually put a couple of the bigger cards that we had together, and actually we're going to be 3 hours live on NBCSN, which is exciting on October 7th, and then coming out of there, we're going to head to Denver. For our Veterans Day fight, our Who's the Toughest fight that I think you've probably seen, John, that, we've talked about bringing some veterans and giving them an opportunity, and they're going to be fighting on the card. Some of those veterans, some of those guys, like Carlos Fodor that just fought and won, and he'll be on the card. And then Ray's been looking at a number of different veterans through our Who's the Toughest program. They've, sent in a bunch of their, backgrounds and videos. And we're just in the middle of starting to launch some digital stuff that'll drive to that November 12th show on Veterans Weekend, also on NBCSN. Then we had a really nice show at Xfinity Arena in Everett, Washington. We're going to be going back there on December 3rd. Really pleased, really great working with the arena, really great crowds. I think the local community really appreciated. We had about 4,000 people in the stands, so it was a good sized show. And so we're going back there on December 3rd, and that sets us all up for the card that Ray and the team are putting together for our sort of our end of year big show back on NBC. Which we're excited about. 2-hour show Saturday afternoon at the end of the sports block from 4 to 6 on that afternoon from MSG's Theater. So there's still some things to do at the commission. You probably know that as well as I know it. But we're working through it, and I think we'll take our guidance from them, and we'll get it all done.
Very cool. I know the one that really stands out on that schedule is that New Year's Eve in New York. Can you talk about how that came together? Because I think some people see that and they think, cool, here we are in New York, the center of entertainment on New Year's Eve especially. I mean, that's awesome, but at the same time, how do you sell tickets to that? How do you get people in the door? It seems to be a lot of benefits, but maybe some challenges as well.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I don't see that at all. It's New York City. Look, I know a lot of people do a lot of things on New Year's Eve, but New York City is one of those things. And if you're headed down to the city or you live around the city or you're going to spend your New Year's Eve night in New York City, 4 to 6 in the afternoon is a way to kick off that evening live on NBC. And, you show up to the arena around 1 o'clock and you get a great afternoon into an early evening of some great fights from World Series of Fighting. And it kicks your evening off. Maybe you have a little dinner. Maybe you stay for our after party that we're putting together, and all of a sudden, it's 8 or 9 o'clock, and you're ready for your New Year's Eve night, maybe in Times Square. So, I see it as sort of a perfect sports afternoon. I tell you, John, I probably feel that way if New Year's Eve was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. But with it being on a Saturday, I think it makes for sort of a perfect sports day.
That actually makes
pre-gaming at Madison Square Garden.
That actually makes some sense when you lay it out like that.
as a former, Manhattanite for 11 years, I can testify. I can say that with confidence that people look for stuff to do the afternoon of.
Yeah, I mean, you're watching. What do you? I mean, Don, you're a sports fan. I mean, what are you doing? Otherwise you'd be probably watching a college football game. You're in a way you're trying to kill the day until New Year's Eve is on, and that's why I've always found that it's always great when New Year's Eve is on a Friday or a Saturday, because it's kind of what it's like a more of a vacation day. But it's always tough when it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday. But I think it makes a great sports day for us. And look, I mean, we're pretty excited to be back on NBC with a live fight. You know that we did our end of year recap show last year with Todd and Boz and Chael, and that was a nice show. But live sports is live sports, so we're excited to be back on NBC. And I think 4 to 6 for that live show. It kind of caps their sports Saturday.
Have you started to talk about next year at all? I mean, what the future holds? Since we've got the rest of 2016 laid out, have you started to kind of draft 2017 and kind of what you envision for World Series in the new year?
We have. We've gotten our preliminary schedule, from our partners at NBC, and then the team has been instructed that before the October 7th shows, I want to be able to announce Q1 and Q2 so that we really get ahead of the schedule next year. And so we're working diligently, end of August and into September on locations, cities, and arenas.
Very cool.
So far, so good. But there's always the arena booking game is not an easy one. So you gotta juggle it.
Well, people, outside of the UFC, if you're not the UFC, the MMA landscape is constantly questioning the health of the organization and what the future holds and all that. I mean, what's your statement to those people right now who say, where is World Series at right now? How does the future look?
I mean, the future looks great. I mean, I get sort of tired, a little tired of getting asked that question. I think we had a great end of year 2015. I think the tournament was great in November. I think we just had some really great fights. The Bogoy Copeland fight was a great fight. Gaethje defended. Marlon and Hill was I thought a great fight. It just ended with a great finish. I thought the Lance and Almeida fight was an epic 5-rounder. I mean, both guys got knocked out and they both came back. And so. Look, I think what we're doing across platforms, I think what we're doing in the arenas, in the cage, and quite frankly, I mean, the way I see it, John, is I'm just seeing on social media as much as ever that people appreciate that we're taking care of fighters, we're putting on, great fights, we're finding young guys and developing them, and we're creating guys that are in the top 10. In the world, and even in the case of a guy like Marlon, top 5 on some rankings, and so I think it bodes really well for what we're doing. And I think, like anything, it just takes some time, and we're just sticking to our guns, and we're doing it every single day.
Welcome back to the MMA Roadshow. That was Carlos Silva laying out the plans for the rest of the year for World Series of Fighting, kind of giving us some hints as to what's happening next year. It's kind of funny, obviously he must be a Roadshow fan when he's talking about pre-gaming New Year's Eve with some fights. And, when you lay it out like that, it honestly doesn't sound too bad of an idea. Start out your afternoon, go take in a couple fights, then maybe go have some dinner afterwards, and then you –
Take in a couple of fights.
there's 1 or 2 out there. Check out the festivities. So, we'll see how it plays out for them. I mean, they're on NBC, so, if you get a chance to be on network television, man, you do it whenever they tell you to do it. So, let's be honest. Who knows how much of a call they had to make there, but you don't argue when you get a chance to be on network TV. Okay, so UFC Fight Night 93. We said it. I think there's going to be some fun fights. I think there's going to be some matchups. When you really look at the card, I think there's some fights that are going to be entertaining. They may not be determining who's the next number 1 contender or anything like that, but I think there are going to be some fun ones. Talk to me about, what you guys have seen, because anytime you go cover a fight week, there's some fighters you've never spoken to before. Maybe there's some fighters that are making their debut, that just kind of you gravitate towards them. They catch your attention. I know, back in Vegas for USAM had, Mike Perry, who's Alex Nicholson was totally wrong. Did I tell you that, guys, earlier, by the way? The guy was wrong. Terrible. He was somebody that caught your attention. But what anything stand out to you? Anything that you're paying attention to that was fun to learn about, that somebody you're going to keep your eye on?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Peter Sabota has been in and around the sport of MMA for a very long time. We're going to see a new reinvented Peter Sabota on Saturday. He dropped. Bombshell might be overplaying it a little bit. He's a German-born Pole, so
Right.
he's German and Polish. Okay, and he's always asked, "Are you representing Germany or are you representing Poland?" And he's in a hopeless position because whichever he says, he's pissed off the other half of the argument,
Right.
and he's got tired of it. So he's decided to do the best thing he could think of, which is, I'm going to represent Jamaica. Right? And we were all
How
looking
did
at
he
each
pick
other.
Jamaica?
We were all looking because he loves the reggae music.
So he doesn't have ties there?
He hasn't
never
even been there. He's going
never
there in
been.
December.
He said he's going there in December. He knows some people there. He loves the reggae music. He's a big Bob Marley fan. He's going to walk to the octagon to Inner Circle's Bad Boys,
Right.
the classic
Yeah.
Cops.
Is he going to have the Jamaica fight kit?
He isn't, because he told the UFC only about 2 weeks ago and they
And it was
didn't
too
have the
late to get it
turnaround
done.
time to do it. But he says the graphics, when they come up on the screen, so look out for those when they do the tail of the tape.
Yeah.
He tells me he's gonna be flying the Jamaican colours.
Did he talk to Nicholas Dalby? See if Nicholas Dalby can get him a new some Jamaica fight gear done in time?
It is hilarious.
That is pretty funny. I like it,
And
man.
he's fighting Nicholas Dalby.
Oh, that's true.
So there you go.
Didn't even ask him for that.
Yeah. So but I just thought it's one of those. You're standing there and you think, did I hear that right?
Right.
And then the questions started coming, and I'm thinking, it's crazy, it's funny.
It's crazy
and
enough that it's good.
I tell you what. This is a veteran guy who's been in and around the sport, as I say, for a long time. And in most cases, other than for like the local media, he probably would have flown under our radars a little bit.
Of course.
But all of a sudden, we're talking about him now.
That's funny.
So that's actually quite smart.
I guess I should explain, if anybody doesn't know, the Nicholas Dalby comment. He, the reason I say that is he actually interned. He did a job shadowing program with the athlete outfitting
UFC
team
199?
here at UFC 199. Yeah, so he was involved in the production and distribution of all the fight kit stuff. So
Yes.
if you wonder what the hell I'm talking about, that's what it was about. What about you, Abby? Anybody that's standing out to you other than the newly crowned Jamaican Peter Sabota?
Someone that we actually didn't get to speak to today, but I've always kept an eye on, is the man from Malmo, Mr. Ilia Latifi, and he's fighting Mr. Ryan Bader, and that's going to be
That's a big fight for both of them.
a big fight. Yeah, for both of them, right? Where's Ryan sitting at the
Fourth,
moment?
I think.
Fourth,
Yeah.
and Ilia's 12th, number 12 in the rankings, right?
Yeah.
So this could be one of those moments for him if he comes out and beats Ryan Bader.
Which Bader gets a lot of hate, but man, the dude his record 20-5 is impressive. We've got him at number 6 in our MMAjunkie USA Today sports ranking.
Right.
We've got we don't have Ilia Latifi at 12, so I'll just but the guy has some talent. He's got some pop in his hands.
Definitely, and a win from Ilia Latifi will definitely catapult him up the ranks.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll get that a UFC Fight Night card in Malmo.
I find
You're just
it.
saying that because Sebastian from MMA Nits over there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Don't touch me. Okay. Yeah.
I'm so pleased this is just an audio podcast.
Yeah. Thank you.
But yeah, I was just going to say, it's interesting that they've got the two light heavyweight bouts back to back on the main card, and obviously Latifi and Gustafsson have trained together in the past, and Latifi's big break in the UFC came when Gustafsson got injured ahead of his bout with Gegard Mousasi, and Latifi stepped in and performed admirably after zero training camp and did very well. But particularly if Bader wins this fight, and if we work on the basis that Gustafsson wins his fight, you can imagine those two meeting a little further down the line.
Yep.
Because there's other business being attended to slightly higher up the ranks. I think that's they're almost creating a mini tournament.
For
here.
sure.
They're building people up. So
For sure.
that's
something a skilled matchmaker like Joe Silva would do.
There you go.
Indeed.
I tell you what, one that I'm going to be watching is, and I think Simon, you and I have talked about this. I think you're on board with it. Scott Askham versus Jack Hermanson. Stylistically, could be a hell of a fun fight. It's meaningful, at least in the European region. Maybe not so much in their division right now and title pictures and all that, but at least. Hell, if this was a Cage Warriors fight or something like this, this is a big fight, and both these guys are certainly UFC level. Askham has been very impressive. You like to taunt his opponents, which is fantastic. Jack Hermanson, I had a chance to see as well.
That's disgraceful.
Up close in person, and he's a lot of fun as well. Yeah, go back and listen to the London show. That was a good one. So that's one I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. I'm excited about that one, and it's cool to see. Jim Wallhead. Judo Jim, 38 fights deep into his career now. Finally getting his UFC debut is pretty cool against an opponent in Justin Ayari who, well spoken, had some great answers.
Came
all the way
across
around.
really well, didn't he?
Really?
And very respectful to Jim as well. He basically said he was really pleased to see that Jimmy Wallhead was finally in the UFC, and it was really cool that he gets to fight against him because he's got so much respect for the guy. So I thought that was really good. And he, as you say, he came across really well on media day, and that's what you want. Sometimes you get these guys, and they wouldn't necessarily be at the top of your hit list as a journalist going around and getting them. But it's always great when you talk to these guys and you come away thinking that was really good. I now know a lot more about this guy, and you've got a level of respect for them, and you know that you can go back to them at another time, and you feel like you've got their story off and running.
Yeah, for sure. The night kicks off. Rustam Habilov versus Leandro Silva. You look at those career records: 19-3 versus 19-4-1. That's the first fight of the night. You've got a heavyweight fight with one guy named Godzilla and the other guy named Man Mountain. I think I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. I think it could be a lot of fun. Just, again, stylistically, I think there's some matchups on here that could be fun. And for our listeners back in the States, it's an afternoon show. So what's better than just chilling on a Saturday afternoon, watching some fights with fast pace because you don't have all those damn commercials, and then you can get done with the fights, and then you can still have your Saturday night to yourself. So I'm excited for it. I think it could end up being a lot of fun. Turns out my first trip to Germany, I'm a big fan of it. Frosty beverages of epic proportions are available everywhere. I haven't found Das Boot anywhere just yet, but there have been some 1-liter glasses, and I think we all agree that anytime you get a little sausage in your mouth, you got to do it. So it's a great place.
Only on the weekends.
And with that, I think we've officially reached the part where the Frosty beverages have called it into the show. So we'll just make it nice and simple. Thanks for listening.
Adios.
What? Yeah, I was jumping. That's why I sit here. Sit your ass down. Right. We don't have to wait.
I know, but I'm used to listening to the show.
Abs. Production, mate.
Sorry. Are we on now?
You'll be in the bloopers.
Okay.
Did you get your headphones in? Fucking rookie.
Come on, Abbey. Go ahead.
No, we'll wait.
All right.
Are you good?
Mm-hmm.
Can you last without smoking for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
You got a problem, dude.
Pot, meat, kettle.
All right. Good?